What if I told you that you could attain wildly high credit card limits on many of your credit cards? Well, that's what this episode is all about. You're not going to want to miss this. In this episode, we'll discuss the key credit score and some of its components that go into helping you get high limit credit cards. We'll discuss solid strategies on how to continuously get increases in credit limits while you have your credit card. And I'll also give you some tips on how to see if you qualify for certain cards without actually ever pulling your credit. Okay, most of you know the simple FICO pie chart. Most all creditors that are going to pull your credit, either a soft pull or a hard pull, depending upon what you're trying to do. For credit card limit increases, we try to just stick with the soft pull. They're going to use FICO. And within FICO, there's a pie chart that FICO uses, and everybody's very familiar with it. For the most part, the FICO pie chart has several different areas in it and percentages that are assigned per area. So as an example, if you pull your credit, they're going to assign 10% of your score to that particular bracket. That doesn't mean that if you pull your credit that you're going to lose 10% of your points. It just means that as kind of a soft measure, that's 10% of your score. Another piece of your score is going to be average age of accounts, and that's going to be 15% of your score. Another part of your score is going to be your credit mix, how many revolving accounts that you have with an installment accounts. That's going to be 10% of your score. Then you've got payment history, which accounts for 35% of your score. And then you've got credit utilization that's going to account for 30% of your score. There's a lot of confusion about that. People think that their credit score is their own, but it's really not. It's all computed together, and they pull out different brackets of people based on similar situations. Okay, now before you get into trying to get high limit credit cards and also get lots of different increases on your credit profile, you want to make sure a couple of key metrics are correct. The credit mix, believe it or not, is very important. You want to have at least one installment loan and preferably 3 credit cards. That's 1 installment loan, 3 credit cards. Most everybody's got an installment loan. You've got your mortgage, you've got your car payment, you've got your student loans, right? Everybody has that. Then you want to make sure that you have at least 3 credit cards. 2 will work, but the scoring algorithm really wants you to have 3. Now, why do you have to have 3 credit cards? A lot of people think that's excessive. A lot of people think that's not very many. The truth is that FICO wants to be able to determine how you use your credit cards. And when a creditor is examining you for a credit limit increase, they're going to look at the different credit cards you have and how you've utilized those, how you've paid on those over a length of time. If you only have 1 credit card or maybe even 2, it's really not enough information to make sure that you can get the highest possible credit limit at any given time. If you're having difficulty making payments, and that is consistent behavior, in other words, you're consistently late on your payments, so that credit card company, they're probably not going to give you a credit limit increase. Another thing that creditors look at when they're going to give you a credit limit increase is they're looking to see how many times you've pulled your credit. It's acceptable to pull your credit 2 to 3 times a year. If you pulled your credit 5 times last month and then you try to get a credit limit increase, obviously that's going to spook the creditor, right? They're like, why are they seeking so much credit? So the idea is to make sure that your inquiries, your hard inquiries, not your soft, are limited, because creditors want to see that you're not really seeking credit. So sometimes it's better, as an example, if you have your 3 credit cards, instead of applying for a new credit card, maybe it's better that we try to get credit limit increases on those credit cards. And hopefully the limit increases between all 3 of those cards would have equaled a new card for you anyways. Okay, the final piece that I want to talk about in terms of building out your credit so that you can get the highest possible credit limit increases is going to be to make sure before we apply for credit limit increases that your credit utilization is where it's supposed to be. Your credit utilization is going to be your balance divided by your limit. So obviously if you have a $5,000 limit and a $5,000 balance, you're at 100% credit utilization. That would not be a good time to request a credit limit increase. Now, in just a minute, I'm going to talk to you about how to request those credit limit increases, and then I'm going to talk to you about some really, really fantastic ways to build out really high limit credit cards very, very quickly. So hang on with me for just a minute. We're going to get there. Now, as far as credit utilization is concerned, most people understand that staying under 30% of your overall limit is going to be optimal. Okay, so what this means is if you have a $1,000 limit, you want to stay under $300, and that's partially true. There's actually other categories underneath of that. The higher you get to maxing out your credit card, the more points you lose in that bracket. Obviously, somebody who's 50% maxed out or 70% maxed out across all of their credit cards is going to be considered high risk. So really, there's several sub-brackets above that show increasing risk. And then it's kind of as an optimal way to go when it comes to credit utilization is you want to stay under 9% of the limit of your credit cards. That's going to trigger the highest score. And if you want to even be better than that, you pay off all your credit cards to 0 and you leave 1 to 3% on one of your credit cards. Now, this is a dynamic number, and what that means is that you can change your credit utilization ratios whenever you want to. So before you go to get credit limit increases, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that your metrics are in check. You have your 3 credit cards, your utilization is paid down to below 9%, and you're going to want to make sure that you hadn't applied for too much credit that year. Now, I know that content creators are forever asking you to like and subscribe to their channel, but if you could pretty please like and subscribe my channel, I would appreciate it. You're helping me out, and you're helping the YouTube algorithm. Now that you understand the metrics and the pieces of the puzzle that go into getting yourself situated so that you can now try to start really ramping up your limits on your credit cards, there's a couple of very easy ways to do this. What I do personally is I have a spreadsheet that I have built out for all of my credit cards, and I have a lot of them. I probably have 10 of them. I don't even know how many I have, but it's a lot. I tracked on a spreadsheet all of my credit cards and all of my limits. And each year, I'll go into whatever financial institution's credit card I'm using, as an example, Capital One, and I will request a credit limit increase every year, and I'll update my income. You're allowed to do it once every 12 months. So most credit card companies have an automatic way to do that online. You log into your portal and you've got to find it. Usually it's going to be under the cog or more about your credit card. Under the settings, it's going to say credit line increase. You can just put your credit line increase in, request, and usually they'll give you an instant decision right then and there. So that's the first way. So every year you're going to ask for the increase. You're going to keep your spreadsheet. You're going to remember, okay, in January of 2023, this year, I'm going to go through and ask all of them. Now, if they say they want to pull your credit, as in a hard inquiry, don't do it, right? There should be no reason that they need to pull your credit for that. Every bank has policy and an internal algorithm that if you go online with them and you've waited that 12 months and you've had good payment history and all your metrics are in check, they're going to automatically award you something. Depending upon how long your credit profile has been around, your income, and some other factors, they're never going to turn down your request provided your metrics are correct and you have good pay history. Next, I want to talk about some kind of hacks that you can do to really ramp up your credit limits. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's a way to get extremely high limits over a period of years. And we'll talk about Chase first. With the Chase card, they've always got a Chase offer. Sometimes it's Freedom, sometimes it's Freedom Unlimited. That's going to give you, and sometimes it's just some other random names that they come out with, Edge and whatever else, that gives you either 12 months or 18 months, 0% interest, and many of them also give you points and point structure for spending on their card. So with Chase, now listen to me, this is definitely a hack. With Chase, you're allowed to apply for the same card every 2 years. And Chase usually has 1 to 3 cards that have the points and the 12 to 18 months with no interest. Now, why is this significant? The reason is because let's say you have a Chase Freedom card and it has a $10,000 limit. And let's say that it's been more than 2 years since you've applied for a Chase card that has some kind of perk. Well, you can apply for another Chase card, say the Edge that's going on right now that has 18 months, 0 interest. And Chase, in most cases, is going to give you a matching credit limit. So now you're going to have 2 cards with $10,000. Now listen to me. Here's what you do next. You take your old card. I ask them, and I usually do it in their online portal, to transfer my limit from my old card to my new card. So now listen, stay with me again. That new card now has a $20,000 limit, okay? And what I do is I shut down my old card. So now I've just increased my credit card from one $10,000 limit to 2 $10,000 limits, and then I consolidated them on the new card that has the perks, that has the 12 months of interest-free purchases, all onto one card. So again, I'm closing the one card. Now I have the new card that has $20,000 limit, and now I've got $20,000 to spend over the next 12 months, and it's interest-free. And guess what you're going to do in another 2 years from then? In 2 years, you're going to do the exact same thing again, and they're probably going to give you the same limit that you now have, which is going to be $20,000. So 2 years later, you're going to have a $20,000 card, another $20,000 card. You're going to transfer the limit to the new card, close the old card down, and now you've got a $40,000 limit card. You can continuously do this with Chase over and over again every 2 years. So if you've been in the credit situation for a while, to get a $50,000 limit, you might have to wait 20 years. But with Chase, if you follow this technique that I just told you, it works, and it works very, very well. The next thing I wanted to talk about was a Citi card. Citi card works exactly the same way. The only difference for Citi is that they're gonna pull your credit if you try to combine your limits. Okay, which is kind of I'm not really a fan of a company pulling my credit again to make a decision, but I've been able to build some really high limits with Citi also, and you actually have to call them to get them to combine your limits. The final thing I wanted to address was business credit cards. Did you know that almost every company, including American Express, Citi, Chase, and most of the others, are going to allow you to combine your personal limit with your business limit? In other words, you're going to be able to take your $20,000 Chase card, that's business, and your $10,000 personal card, and you can ask them to transfer your personal limit to your business. American Express, I've done this with them constantly, and it's really, really nice. So I had really high limits on my personal side, and I had them transfer those limits over to my business side. Now, what's the importance of that? Well, on your business credit cards, with American Express and with Chase, they don't show up on your personal credit, right? So you can transfer your limits and you can utilize those credit cards heavily on the business side, and it doesn't show up on your personal credit. Another really good way to keep track of your utilization and build out really high limits.